A quiet park. A female Marine seeks peace after war, her German shepherd at her side, but her trained eyes see what others miss. An old man's desperate signal, and his grandson's false smile. A silent tap is a scream for help that only a soldier can hear. Her actions will prove that courage can break the darkest prisons. If you believe no one should be left behind, subscribe. This story will reignite your faith in quiet heroes. May God bless us all. Early autumn had cast a spell over the city of Oakhaven, painting the leaves in hues of gold and crimson. The air was crisp, carrying the faint, sweet scent of distant wood smoke and decaying leaves. A peaceful requiem for the departing summer. For most, Oakhaven Park was an oasis of tranquility. For Captain Anya Volkov, it was a battlefield devoid of sound. At 25, she possessed a striking classical beauty, with flawless white skin and raven black hair pulled back into a severe, disciplined bun at the nape of her neck. Dressed in her Marine Corps combat utility uniform, the digital Marpat camouflage seemed to clash with the serene landscape, a stark reminder of a world she had left behind, but that had not yet left her. Every habit, honed through 2 brutal tours and active war zones, remained sharply intact. Her piercing green eyes scanned in a practiced 180-degree arc, instinctively identifying exits, cover points, and potential threats. Her most notable target over the past week was a frail elderly man on a bench by the duck pond. He was Arthur Pendleton, a retired history professor, whose name she had learned from the park ranger. A man who should have radiated wisdom now wore the haunted look of a prisoner. His warden was Caleb Vance, his sole nephew. Caleb, a man in his early 30s with meticulously styled blonde hair and a smile that never reached his cold, calculating blue eyes, was always by his side. He wore expensive casual clothes that seemed too pristine for a park stroll. His hand rested constantly on Arthur's shoulder, a gesture that looked supportive to the casual observer, but felt like a brand of ownership to Anya. She watched how Caleb smoothly intercepted conversations when a neighbor greeted them, how he would give a subtle, dismissive shake of his head when Arthur tried to speak. Today, the tension was palpable. Caleb was on his phone, his voice a low, irritated hiss. Seizing the moment of distraction, Arthur's gaze darted around desperately. His thin, papery fingers began to tap, a nearly invisible rhythm, on the wooden slat of the bench. 3 short taps, a pause, 3 short taps. Anya's heart seized. It wasn't an idle habit, it was a signal, a silent, desperate cry for help. Beside her, Rune, her magnificent 4-year-old German shepherd, felt it too. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. His powerful body, a tapestry of black and tan, went rigid, his intelligent amber eyes fixed on the old man. Rune was more than a dog. He was her partner, trained for combat tracking and protection, and his instincts were as sharp as hers. Anya placed a steadying hand on his neck, a silent command to hold. One signal could be a coincidence, but a soldier's intuition screamed that it wasn't. The image of a crowded market in Kandahar flashed behind her eyes, vivid and unwelcome. A young girl selling pomegranates had looked at her with the same terrified eyes, her small fingers tapping an identical rhythm on a wooden crate. Amid the chaos, Anya had dismissed it as a child's game. 10 minutes later, a bomb had torn the market apart. The guilt from that inaction was a wound that never healed. Oakhaven was supposed to be where she forgot the past, but the past was replaying itself on a park bench. Not this time, she vowed to herself. As she was lost in thought, a friendly voice broke her concentration. Liam O'Connell, the park ranger, approached. He was a man around 30, with an easy smile, warm brown eyes, and a sturdy build that spoke of an outdoor life. His ranger uniform was neat but comfortable, and he moved with a calm confidence that put people at ease. He didn't ask about Arthur. He asked about her. "I see you out here every day, Captain," he said, his tone gentle. "But you don't look like you're taking a walk. You look like you're on patrol." His words hit their mark. "Old habits die hard," she replied, her voice clipped. "I used to be a paramedic," Liam shared, leaning against a nearby oak tree. "We have our own habits. We're trained to look for signs of pain. And I see it in Mr. Pendleton. What do you see?" Liam's unexpected empathy chipped away at the defensive wall Anya had built around herself. For the first time since coming home, she felt she had found someone who spoke the same language. The language of observation, of seeing what lies beneath the surface. "I see a man being held captive," she admitted, the words feeling heavy in the autumn air. A silent alliance was formed, born not just of a shared mission to save Arthur, but perhaps to save Anya from the lonely ghosts of her past. The sky over Oakhaven wept. A persistent drizzle had settled in, slicking the park's pathways with a dark sheen and muting the vibrant autumn colors into a somber palette of browns and deep reds. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and coming rain. It was a day for staying indoors, yet Anya and Rune were there, their mission now defined by a chilling new piece of information. Liam had called her an hour earlier, his usually cheerful voice tight with a cold fury. He had spoken to a friend, Sarah, the head pharmacist at the downtown clinic. Sarah was a kind, observant woman in her late 40s, who had known Arthur and his late wife for years and had grown increasingly concerned. She confirmed their worst fears. Caleb had not refilled Arthur's critical heart medication prescription in over 2 weeks. He was using his uncle's life as leverage. The cold anger that settled in Anya's gut was a familiar one. It was the same fury she'd felt witnessing injustice in lands far from home. Today she wasn't in uniform, but in a plain gray raincoat, the hood pulled up. It was better to observe without drawing attention. From behind the dripping leaves of a large magnolia tree, she watched the scene unfold. Caleb held a sleek tablet, its screen glowing unnaturally in the gloom, pushing it towards Arthur. "You see, it's so much easier if you just cooperate." Caleb's voice was a venomous whisper, barely carried on the damp air. "Just one touch. Your fingerprint is all it takes. Once it's done, I promise, we'll go straight to the pharmacy." Arthur's face was ashen, his hands trembling violently. He looked from the screen to Caleb's unyielding face, then his gaze swept towards a small flock of pigeons pecking at the wet ground. In a sudden, desperate movement, he knocked the small paper bag of corn kernels from the bench. It split open, scattering its contents across the gravel path. "You clumsy old fool!" Caleb snarled, his mask of patience finally cracking. He bent down, irritated, to retrieve the bag. It was a window of only 3 seconds, but for a man whose mind was a library of history's greatest strategies, it was enough. Arthur's index finger shot out, tracing 3 frantic, shaky patterns in the damp dust between the gravel stones. 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots. SOS in Morse code. A gust of wind swept through the trees, and the drizzle intensified, washing the message away almost as soon as it was made. But it was too late. Anya had already seen it. Her phone was in her hand, the lens zoomed in, capturing a clear, damning photograph of the desperate plea before it vanished. Rune, who had been lying low, rose to a crouch, a warning growl vibrating through the wet air. No longer a subtle rumble, but a clear statement of intent. Caleb, hearing the sound, straightened up and his eyes locked onto Anya's position. He saw the phone. He saw her face, a mask of cold resolve. The flicker of panic in his eyes was instantly replaced by a look of pure, malevolent hatred. The game was over. He knew he'd been seen. That night, sleep offered Anya no refuge. The image of the SOS in the dust was seared into her mind, superimposed over the memory of a dark red stain spreading across the dusty ground of the Kandahar market. She finally understood. Her hesitation then and her caution now were 2 sides of the same coin. The paralyzing fear of failure, the fear of intervening and making things worse, or the fear of not intervening and watching the worst happen. She picked up her phone and called Liam. "He's withholding the medication," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, a dangerous calm. "It's worse than that, Anya." Liam's voice was grim on the other end. "I did some more digging after I spoke with Sarah. Caleb just cleared out a massive amount from Arthur's main investment account this afternoon. He's liquidating everything. My contact at the sheriff's office says he has a one-way flight booked to a country with no extradition treaty, leaving in 2 days. He's planning to run." The final piece clicked into place. The information cut through Anya's remaining doubts like a laser. This was no longer a matter of judgment or interpretation. It was a race against time to save a man's life and stop a predator from escaping. The fear of failure was consumed by the certainty of purpose. She wasn't just fighting for Arthur anymore. She was fighting for the ghost of a little girl in a faraway market. She would not let history repeat itself. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean. The autumn sun shone brightly, but it held no warmth for Anya. She wasn't wearing athletic gear. Today she wore her Service C uniform. The olive green blouse and khaki trousers were perfectly pressed. Her rank insignia as captain gleaming on the collar, the ribbon rack on her chest, a silent testament to her service. This was a calculated choice. She wasn't here as a concerned citizen. She was here as an officer of the United States Marine Corps, an embodiment of honor and commitment. This was a statement. The plan was set. Liam was positioned near the park entrance, communicating via a discreet earpiece. Their contact from the sheriff's office, Detective Miller, was already in place. Miller was a veteran officer in his late 50s, a man with tired eyes that had seen too much but missed nothing. His civilian attire of a plain windbreaker and jeans made him blend in perfectly with the morning crowd as he sat on a bench, seemingly engrossed in a newspaper. Anya and Rune moved with purpose, their boots making soft, rhythmic sounds on the pavement. They approached the bench where Caleb was once again trying to force the tablet on Arthur. Seeing the uniform, Caleb's smug expression faltered for a second, before hardening into a defiant smirk. Well, if it isn't Oak Haven's resident hero. Can I help you, Captain? You can't help me, Anya's voice was ice. But you can help Mr. Pendleton by letting go of his arm. Caleb's grip tightened possessively on Arthur's frail bicep. I don't know what you're talking about. My uncle is unwell. I'm taking him home. He began to pull Arthur to his feet, a clear act of aggression. Stop! The word was not shouted. It was a command, delivered with an authority that could halt a platoon in its tracks. Caleb spun around, his face inches from hers, his voice a low snarl. You have no authority here. Perhaps I don't, Anya said, her gaze unwavering. But he does. On that cue, Rune moved. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply stepped forward, placing his powerful 90-pound frame directly in front of Caleb, blocking his path. His body was a coiled spring, every muscle taut. His intelligent amber eyes stared directly into Caleb's, and he slowly, deliberately, lifted his upper lip to reveal a formidable set of white K-9s. The message was primal and universal. Do not take another step. Even a man like Caleb, fueled by greed and arrogance, understood that language. He recoiled instinctively. It was in that split second of distraction that Arthur acted. Fueled by a surge of adrenaline and a lifetime of suppressed dignity, he yanked his arm free. With a strength that surprised everyone, he turned and struck Caleb across the face with an open palm. The crack of the slap echoed in the quiet morning air. It wasn't just a physical blow. It was a declaration of freedom. Caleb roared in fury and disbelief, his hand flying up, to strike his uncle back. But he never made contact. Before his arm could swing, Detective Miller was there, moving with the surprising speed of a seasoned officer. Miller grabbed Caleb's wrist, twisting it behind his back in a single, efficient motion. Caleb Vance, Miller's voice was calm and official as the click of handcuffs echoed. You're under arrest. As Miller led a struggling and cursing Caleb away, Anya stood her ground. She saw not just a defeated con man, but the ghost of a terrorist leader in Kandahar. Wearing the uniform wasn't just a tactic to intimidate Caleb. It was an affirmation for herself. She was a Marine. Her duty was to stand for those who couldn't stand for themselves. She looked at Arthur, who was breathing heavily, his hand still tingling. Anya hadn't intervened in the slap. She knew instinctively that he needed to land that blow himself. It was the moment he reclaimed the honor that Caleb had tried to strip from him. Watching him stand a little taller, his eyes clearer than she had ever seen them, Anya felt a weight lift from her own shoulders. She hadn't rescued a victim. She had provided the opening for a man to save himself. The wheels of justice turned slowly, but for Caleb Vance, they ground exceedingly fine. The investigation following his arrest unearthed a pattern of predatory behavior that was both chilling and systematic. He hadn't only targeted Arthur. Detectives found a second victim, a distant cousin in another state, who had been coerced into a nursing home after Caleb had systematically drained her finances. The case built by the assistant district attorney, a sharp, determined woman named Ms. Ramirez, was irrefutable. The trial took place as winter began to tighten its grip on Oak Haven. Inside the solemn, wood-paneled courtroom, Caleb sat in a standard-issue jumpsuit, the picture of defeated malevolence. The trial's most powerful moment came when Arthur Pendleton took the stand. He was supported by his daughter, Eleanor, a poised woman in her 40s, whose eyes still held the shadow of the past few months' ordeal. Dressed in a tweed jacket, Arthur's hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. He recounted, with the clarity of a historian, every detail of Caleb's manipulation: the isolation, the medical neglect, the psychological pressure. When he spoke of the signals, he looked directly at Anya. Anya, in her pristine Service A uniform, testified next. Her account was crisp, factual, and devoid of emotion. She presented the photographs of the Morse code in the dust, her testimony lending a soldier's credibility to Arthur's claims. Liam followed, providing the crucial civilian context: the observed changes in Arthur's demeanor, the financial red flags, and the confirmation about the withheld medication. The jury's deliberation was brief. The verdict was unanimous on all counts. The judge, a woman with a stern but fair expression, looked down at Caleb. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice echoing in the silent room, "you preyed upon the vulnerable, using trust as a weapon and affection as a mask for your greed. This court finds your actions to be heinous and calculated." The sentence was delivered without hesitation: 15 years in state prison, with no possibility of early parole. Furthermore, all assets and funds illegally obtained from Mr. Pendleton and other victims are to be seized and returned through restitution. Justice, concrete and undeniable, had been served. In the courthouse hallway afterward, the air was thick with relief. Anya stood quietly by a window, watching the winter sky. Arthur and his daughter approached her. He didn't offer a simple thank you. He gently took her hand in both of his eyes filled with a profound gratitude that words could not capture. "Captain," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you taught an old historian the most important lesson of his life, that the bravest acts of defiance are sometimes the quietest. Thank you for listening when I had no voice." That single statement meant more to Anya than any medal she had ever earned. Several months later, spring had returned to Oak Haven, breathing new life into the park. The trees were budding, and the air was warm with promise. Anya walked alongside Liam, their conversation easy and familiar, a comfortable silence settling between them as they watched the world awaken. Rune trotted ahead, no longer a sentinel, but a happy dog, chasing a bright red ball. They saw Arthur sitting at a stone chessboard, his opponent a bright-eyed boy of about 7. His grandson, Leo. Arthur looked 10 years younger, his face full of life and laughter as he explained a move to the child. The shadow was gone. "You know," Anya said softly, her gaze fixed on the happy scene, "when I first came back, the peace here felt loud, unsettling. I felt like I didn't belong in it." She looked at Liam, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. "But I understand now. Peace isn't just the absence of war. It's something you have to stand for, something you have to protect, even here." Rune dropped the ball at her feet, looking up expectantly. Anya picked it up, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. She was no longer a soldier haunted by a war. She was a guardian who had found her purpose, not on a foreign battlefield, but in the quiet heart of her hometown. She was finally, truly home. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not thunder and lightning from the heavens, but quiet acts of courage in ordinary places. A trembling hand tapping a signal on a park bench, a loyal dog standing as a guardian, and a Marine who refused to look away. These are the ways God works through us to protect the vulnerable. This story reminds us that His light shines even in the darkest corners, and that goodness and love will always break through when the world feels cold. In our own daily lives, we all have the chance to be part of such miracles. It may be truly listening to someone who feels invisible, offering a moment of kindness to a neighbor, or simply refusing to stay silent when we see something wrong. Each act, no matter how small, is a reflection of God's care and compassion at work in the world. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to share it with others who may need a story of hope. Leave a comment with your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories of courage and inspiration. And together, let us offer a prayer. May God bless and protect all who watch, all who believe, and all who choose compassion over indifference. Amen.